Hi there, and welcome to our podcast, the live podcast. For this is the seventh episode that I have had now, and I have amazing Rachel, which I'm gonna let her to soon a little bit introduce herself. But for those, if somebody is there first time, my name is Pirita, and this is the seventh episode, like I said already, from our little dance journeys. And it's been 7 months since I've been now doing so each month one, and I have invited a lovely dance lover to join us. People who have a big passion for dance and just sharing their journey, basically what they've been discovered from dance, what kind of struggles they have. So I'm really excited. This is now kind of the last one I have planned so far to do. I was planned to try on 7 and see how it's gonna go, what's gonna happen. So yeah, excited to start. And those who are also watching us live, I am looking at the chat in there. So anytime if you have any questions, please just put them on the comments. We will answer them. But I will just let first Rachel a little bit introduce herself. So Rachel, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, where you're from, etc.
Okay, cool. So I'm Rachel. I'm originally from London. I moved to Scotland to go to university and have stayed here ever since. And I now work for a third sector organisation who support people with accessibility needs in the wider transport space. Now I can add it to my LinkedIn now. I've given my little work chat. I have been dancing with Pirita since just pre-lockdown. I went to a couple of classes in person, and then found out about all the cool stuff that she was doing online and thought that's what I want to be doing with my evenings. And so here I am.
Amazing. Wow. And well, if we think about, I'm always kind of asked this first from people of what kind of, how did the dance kind of started there? So how has your little dance history started? Was it from when you were a kid, you were doing classes, or did it kind of start when you were more adult?
Okay. So I, when I was a child, I had really bad problems with my inner ears and I had awful balance. I fell over all the time. Like my knees were just red with scars all the time because I had no balance. And my parents thought that doing some dancing would help me to get a little bit of balance and rhythm. So when I was about 7 or 8, they put me into a tap dancing class and a ballet class. And then my grandpa started doing the adult versions of the classes as well. So like we would kind of tap along together, which was really nice. But then I got a little bit older, and I, like most people, became a really awkward teenager. And I stopped doing this thing that I loved because I wasn't amazing at it, and it didn't matter that I loved it when you're 11. What other people think really matters. So I stopped dancing and I stopped really doing anything. Um, and then I got to maybe 15, 16. I was super into like Latin music, and I thought, well, I'll go and do this Zumba thing that everyone's talking about. And so I went and I did that, and I loved it. I loved moving. I loved the music. I loved feeling part of a group of people who just were there having a positive time. And so I kind of did that sort of dancing on and off for a couple of years. And I think in the start of 2020, I realized that I wanted to combine that music and that rhythm that I loved with probably slightly more precise movements, choreographed dancing. And I saw that Dance Base did a reggaeton class, and I couldn't believe it. I thought, I can't believe anybody else wants to dance to reggaeton music in Edinburgh. Um, and I went along, and I was so frightened because, so I'm about 6 foot, so that's 184 centimeters. So I can't hide in the back of a class. I'm very obviously there. and I was so scared. But I did it and I loved it. And I just kind of thought, just steal all of Pirita's energy. And it was great. And I haven't looked back. I love it. And I don't, wondering what other people think doesn't really bother me anymore, because I'm just so in love with the music and the movement that it just doesn't feel like it matters.
Wow. I think always of when I also heard your kind of story from your background first, and it was like your grandparents are also being there from your kind of start from the dance journey. I felt like that's like, oh, it just kind of took my heart. I was like, oh, how brilliant is that? And it just shows that it doesn't matter what age you are, and it's like it is all for all. It's just to kind of find like what works for you and what inspires you. And it seems like when you found reggaeton, that was also the thing of like, yeah, this is for me, and it inspires me and it motivates me. So finding something that is really nice and exciting to do, so that's really lovely to hear about a little bit of your background. So now that you have been dancing, how do you think your kind of dance habits has changed now, if we think about life in pandemic and before the pandemic?
I think I think it's two things for me. There's the mental change and the physical change. I think in terms of the mental change, I think I had seen it as, here is a fun way of working out. And to me, the losing weight and looking better felt like a higher priority than the the style of dance or the movement. That was just like an added bonus. Whereas I think now what happens physically is great. It's lovely. It's lovely to feel fitter, but actually my focus now is on what that movement allows me to express, or what that movement allows me to hear in the music. So I think from a physical perspective, that priority has changed during the pandemic. I think from a mental perspective, it allows me to separate myself from everything else that's happening in my life, and for 30 minutes or an hour or 90 minutes, just focus on me and what I need, and challenging myself. When we spoke about kind of summing this up in a quote, that idea of feeling enough, when you said that to me, I thought, yeah, that actually really is something for me, because I like to do really well at things and to be constantly striving and thriving, but sometimes that's for other people or career progression. But actually, this is just for me. As much as you've been my teacher, the person who this matters to is me. It matters to me that I can do things better, that my plies are deeper, that that I can use my muscles and use my strength in this really positive way. That's for me. And that's actually really empowering. And I think it's something that I would never have thought that just dancing in my kitchen would ever get me there. And here I am.
Yeah, wow. That's it's that feeling of, yeah, getting the little control for yourself. Like,
Yeah.
this is me, this is my time. And it's something what I have also recently of been thinking a lot of the past years of how much the training, even for myself, was the biggest motivation, the biggest reason was to be looking fitter for dance world, or looking a little bit more slimmer for any parts, or just training to get that six packs, because everybody is talking about the six pack, so I need to get that six pack. But then when you kind of needs to start looking at the training in a different way, you start getting enjoyment in more.
Yeah.
But yeah, that realization needs to happen. Everyone we have it on different way, but it is a little bit unfortunate that still on so much on our training, and especially dance as well, that we are so much of a how we look and how the movement is looking, how the dance is looking, not paying attention how it really feels and why we're doing it. So might affect a lot for the motivation. What do you feel? What's been kind of the key things for you to keep on dancing, and what kind of the tricks for the motivation? I know so much of, we've been talking now the last month about a lot about motivation, and the biggest struggle I hear from people of dancing and training is always the part of like, yeah, there's no time and how to keep balancing things. But what do you feel now? Been thinking about this a lot, I think, so as well. So what do you think are the tricks for you to keep on dancing and that motivation up?
I think there is a motivation in accepting that sometimes you don't want to do it. And sometimes there's, you don't want to dance because your body is tired and you need a break, and you should give yourself that. And I think that being self-aware on those days that you need a rest is a really key part of that motivation. But then I think there are those days where it's been a long day, you're tired, and you know you kind of could, but also actually you could just watch the telly. I think that sort of, I don't feel like it. For me, it's just put the music on and you find yourself moving. And then, I'll like sit at my desk and I'll shut my laptop and the workday is done. And I'm like, I know I need to go and train. And I just don't feel the energy in that moment. I'll put my headphones in and I'll put on some Daddy Yankee or whatever it is. And I'm like, I'll just start moving. And then I find that I've kind of danced my way through to the bedroom, and I've danced my way into my workout gear, and then I've danced my way, and suddenly you're there and you're doing it. So I think part of it is just finding that little hook that gets you in. If it's putting the clothes on or it's listening to the music, whatever it might be, just find that thing that works for you. I think the other thing with motivation is that thing of believing that you are worth spending your time on. Actually believing that spending an hour working on something that won't make you richer, might make you live longer, but something that serves no purpose other than to make you happy is a perfectly good use of your time. I think is something that we're not very good, and maybe particularly as women, at believing that actually you deserve you as much as your loved ones, your children, your colleagues. You deserve you. And I think trying to live in that mindset is the best ongoing motivation that I've found.
Oh, yeah, you really summed everything in there. Amazing. Like we talked about these little key lines and topics, kind of titles for each podcast. And when I was kind of thinking about your journey, because we've been even working now closer, so thinking of that feeling enough, I think that's been something that you have found yourself, and in so many levels in dance. But yeah, like you said, just it is enough to just give yourself of that little moment. And it doesn't, because I think so many of us think that it has to be having some kind of a bigger purpose in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, obviously if it's giving money, or is it what it is really giving, but just that is it's huge purpose of giving that smile, or just that little time for yourself, what we all need. So yeah, you really well said it in there.
Thank you.
What do you think is, any time, if you think now, what has been in previous, before pandemic and before that, what do you think was the kind of the things that made you stop dancing?
I think I stopped dancing when I was younger because I gave in to pressure that probably didn't come from other people. It was probably just a fear that other people would judge me. But actually, I didn't give anybody else a chance to judge me before I stopped doing it. It's not like I danced and something went wrong and then I stopped. I was so full of fear that there would be some judgment that I just stopped. And actually, maybe I kind of self-bullied myself to get to that. So I think that's why I stopped when I was younger. I think as an adult, why did I stop? Because I didn't prioritize it. I didn't make time for it. And I think one of the things that I have found enormously helpful doing the group back challenge is the expectation that I schedule this into my life in the way that I would schedule in work or time with my friends or a haircut or whatever it might be. Actually not saying, oh, well, I'll just see what happens, but actively making that commitment to myself, to you, to the program, I think has been a huge thing that has let me continue. Whereas previously, I'd have missed a week and then another week, and then suddenly you realize you've not been for quite a long time and it feels too long to go back. So I think, yeah, that's probably why I would have previously stopped. And I think feeling like it's, as much as, as I've said, a lot of this is personal, feeling like there is a relationship with you, with other people in the program, has made me feel that I'm accountable. And for me, that's really important, because otherwise I just sit on the sofa on Instagram eating crisps, which isn't a great use of my time. So yeah, so I think it's good to keep going.
Keep going. Yeah. It is. It's really normal and it's really typical. I've always said that to other people like you as well. Of I keep on going classes if even now I keep on going classes if I feel that the teacher is there really appreciating my time as well, and it's noticing me, and I think that's been always really huge part for myself of like, yeah, that I matter, that I have a feeling that I matter in that class as well. That's kind of pushes me to go in there. It gives that accountability, like, okay, it matters that I'm here. So yeah, it's just of there's so much in dance and so much classes. There's many of us teachers. Is I think the biggest problem is just to find the right place that you feel like this is your place. This is the kind of style that it gives you, like you have the connection with the teacher. It's everything that's kind of happening, but yeah, finding your own place and just allowing yourself, like, also like, oh, was not for me, but there is something, and just kind of discover. Have you been of you going through this of little bit trying different stuff around and being in this situation of like, you notice like, oh, this is not for me?
Yes, I think there have been classes in the program where they haven't necessarily hit the same points in my heart that reggaeton hits. Like the music starts and I'm dancing and my heart sings, and not everything will do that for me. But actually, I think one of the things that I've found so useful about the program is being able to do things that are not necessarily my comfort zone or that I'm not particularly strong in, but still working with you, find things in it that are teachable moments for me, or things that I can build on. So a big part of the program, obviously, that I'm doing at the moment is the contemporary. And when I first started, I was not a fan. It did not grab me, and I don't think I grabbed it. And actually, I did it yesterday, and I was so focused, and I could feel muscles that I hadn't used the first time round, and feel all the conversation that we had leading up to that class. I could feel the physical impact of that on my body, and that was such a powerful feeling. It wasn't the sort of happiness that I necessarily get from reggaeton, but there was a powerful feeling in mastering something
Yeah.
that, well, maybe not mastering, I mean, it was slightly better than the week before, but you know what I mean, you know, just working on something that wasn't necessarily something that I loved. um I don't think there's been anything that I've done and thought never ever again. But then I think a huge part of that is about the energy that you bring, because even if I think it looks awful, you always find something positive in it. Or I'm like, this is a disaster. And you're like, oh no, that's okay. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe it's okay.
Yeah, I believe it comes a lot from our own pressure that we put ourselves when we feel like some styles are not for us. It comes a lot from how we see ourselves in that style, and maybe it's not the way you hope to see it, so it brings that little pressure for yourself.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think it's been now that we've been talking of that feeling enough,
Mm-hmm.
and you have had a really eventful year even inside the pandemic, but going into your dance journey, what's now the kind of the biggest highlight, what you have learned for yourself through dance?
I think it is that feeling enough, and feeling like I can take risks with new ways of doing things, and that even if it doesn't work, it can all be done again the next day. And I think the freedom that that gives me to try, is a really important one. You know, I remember a couple of weeks ago we were speaking about it, and I was saying I couldn't remember many things as an adult I had done that I wasn't already okay at. You know, I might be building on them, but they were skills I already had, and doing this thing that I really had no guarantee would go well. That for me has been a huge highlight. In terms of like the technical aspect of the dance, what's been the biggest highlight? I think just an ability to pick up the choreography faster, because I can get out of my head a bit. Um, I I remember saying to you when we first started that I record all of the classes, like myself doing them, and I could see myself biting my nails and getting uncomfortable and quite anxious. And I look at them now, and I see, you know, there are still good days and bad days, but I see so much less of that. And I think a lot of that is because I don't feel afraid to fail in the way that I maybe once did.
Yeah. Wow. And that's a huge thing to notice for yourself, and thinking how much that can then affect on other parts of your life as well, and even not just thinking about just working. Well, what do you think of then people who might feel a little bit on similar shoes than you are, of going into this dance journey and perhaps finding a little bit similar kind of struggles of not maybe first think of having that on off little relationship of starting dancing and stopping and starting and stopping. And what do you think, what would you say to the people, what you would recommend them to do?
Try. I think it sounds so simple, and I know how hard it is to push yourself out of that comfort zone. But what I would say is you'd be amazed how much people want to support you to do the best that you can. You know, whether that looks like my partner running out in the middle of his meeting so I can have the kitchen so I can dance, or whether that's Pirita watching the same 3 seconds of me plieing over and over again to show me where my ankle actually should be. People want to support you when you want to try new things. So have a go. And I think investing time in yourself is always a good thing. And those memes and TikTok videos and Instagram reels will still be there in an hour. They're not going anywhere. So if you spend an hour on yourself first, it's absolutely fine. But I think, yeah, just try and just reach out. Like I remember writing to you about this, and I'm really not feeling sure that it was for me, and that being okay, and having that, building that relationship to that point where I felt that I could try. I didn't wake up one morning and just decide, yeah, I'm gonna ignore 28 years of sort of self-doubt and just start dancing. It wasn't that at all. It was just a tiny step in the right direction, and you met me on that journey, and we kind of did that together.
Mm. Yeah, and it's lovely that you said about that reaching out, because I feel like and I know even I have been on that space of like, who can I ask help, who can help me. And then if you have went through life so much of not learning how to ask help and not knowing how it can go, I think must be it's hard at first to really ask and reach out to the people, but there is always people who want to help if you find the right people there. So yeah, it's a really lovely that you said it. So I would definitely just underline it as well of, yeah, everybody to reaching out. If you feel like you have a passion of it, you want to do it, something is there stopping you, it's really easy to fix and have a look at what it is there to stopping. But sometimes if we're just alone with that stuff, it might get really big in their head, and it's just like you also said earlier, it's just starting it later and later and later. It gets harder and harder and harder because you build that pressure on yourself each time more and more.
And I think there's something in what you just said there about like the other person might be able to see the solution where you maybe can't see it, and I think you only know what you know, and that other person might, like, I'm trying to think of an example, but just weeks where things have not gone necessarily the way that I wanted them to, actually you being able to kind of play around with how I order things in my week, or which bits I focus on and let other stuff go, that I think sometimes you just need that external person to have that clarity of vision. And I think that's something that I hadn't really realized before I started this was something I needed.
Yeah, yeah, and it's the similar for myself. I still ask those help as well. We get so into our heads, and when we are looking our things, they're so close, and when you keep on looking them long time alone, it just keeps on feeling like they're closer and closer, and when it gets too close we can't see anything. So yeah, just the other eyes just kind of helping you to see there's always an easy solution, but it's just the first of, yeah, taking that risk, remembering that you're enough and taking that chance to dive into it, because it's a lovely thing to do, dancing. We should all do it. I always said it. I still think everybody can dance. It's just there's so many things that can be stopping you. So ending our little podcast for this one, on the last one, tell us, why is that you keep on dancing? What dance is for you?
So I wrote this down, because if you don't know Pirita's stuff, she's been doing this thing on motivation, and set a challenge to write down why you dance. And I've actually kept it on my desk since the day that I wrote it down, exactly for that moment where I shut my laptop and I just think, oh my God, I can't be bothered to go and dance. And having it sat there is really important. So these are the things that I said are the reasons that I keep dancing, because the rhythm moves me, because it isn't a competition, because it's a form of expression, It allows me to focus my mind. It continually improves my relationship with my body, and it energizes me for all the other stuff that life brings. So that's my answer.
Wow.
I
And
can't believe I just had that written down already. That was so handy.
Wow, and it's good that you have it in there. It's something what I've been telling. It's just those little things of reminding ourselves why we keep on doing. And I keep on still writing it, and I still need to go sometimes back to it when I feel like, oh, this is not working out. I need to remind myself, why did I in the first place? Why did I do this? So, and everybody, we have a different reasons why we do it. So finding your reasons in there. Well, amazing. Well, is there any last words or questions you want to put out there, or you want to ask from me, or last words for everybody, anybody who's there listening?
I suppose I'd ask you the same question, because obviously dance for you is your passion and it's your life, but it's also it's this thing that you share with other people. So I suppose I'd ask you why you keep dancing.
As one of the biggest ultimate reasons why I keep on dancing, it's my only way almost throughout the whole life. I felt like I can express myself, who I am, what moves me, what I like, who am I as a person. So it's really expressing my feelings, but it's expressing who I am. Because sometimes the words are harder, and as somebody who has a really also hard dyslexia, sometimes writing is hard as well. So I think from movement I can go into those feelings. So it's a huge of expressing myself, and it's expressing all those emotions that are running through that I don't even sometimes know why I feel like this. But then it's the love of sharing it with others as well. And it becomes so much of how much dance has given me. I hope I can help other people in the same position so they can have that little body. I felt like I have had the longest relationship ever with anything in my life, and it's been with dance. And it's this relationship that it just keeps growing. We have had those moments that we may broke up, but we're still here. So yeah, but it's one line that is still on my diary is it's my way of expressing who I am and how I feel. Well, thank you so much, Rachel. I think this has been really inspiring talk. And I hope anybody there listening even this later on will get inspired by your story and get inspired of how you have been dealing with dance and what it is for you and seeing it differently, and yeah, reminding all to reach out whatever you feel. If you're struggling with, there is always a way out from it, and you don't have to do it alone. Never doing it alone. In this world we need each other.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I cannot imagine a year and a half ago that I'd be doing this. So thank you so much for having me for this, and just for your ongoing support and inspiration and friendship in the last year and a half, because it has kept me sane and given me this amazing gift. So I'm so grateful, and I would recommend it to anybody to give it a go.
Amazing. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you for your trust. It's taking those risks, but trusting that person. I know. For all the craziness that I pull out there.
Always like
Well, so we're just wishing now everybody an amazing day wherever you are there. Thank you for listening to us. And if you have any comments even later on, you can pop them down on the video and we will get back to you. And I would really love to hear any comments what these podcasts, if you're hearing them even later on, let me know what you think about them. Is it something that has been inspiring and helpful even to continue? So that feedback would be really helpful to know later on. But thank you, everybody. We're just wishing now amazing day there. And yeah, keep on dancing. Bye, everyone.
Bye.